Welcome to your go-to source for entertainment. Wait for it. Gaming. Wait for it. Anime. Plus Ultra! Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Wait For It podcast. I am your co-host, Phil Smith, aka Phil the Filipino, and joining me, Eric, for what is a brand new and exciting series we hope to consistently do here on the podcast, which is the Creator Spotlight. Who knows, it may even go through a transition as far as different names of what we're going to call this series, but one thing we do know, Eric, is we are super excited to have our guest in here today. We're going to bring him in just a moment. But yeah, Eric, really excited to see how this series goes. And again, to have this awesome conversation with our guest today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, coming off the high of Beta Quest, we got to speak to so many cool people. So getting to go round 2, and for you guys listening, round 1, we're really, really excited for this. So let's get into this. I mean, Matthew Elkins, everybody. Matthew, thank you so much for joining us and for taking the time, to jump on the podcast. How are you doing tonight?
Well, caca. Hey, guys, how are y'all? I'm doing great. Second time's the charm, baby. Unfortunately, we lost the audio from Beta Quest. May it rest in peace. But
May it rest in peace. Yeah, but it led to this opportunity here, which is super exciting. And I mean, there's so much that we're going to get to talk about. Talking about Beta Quest first, though, Matt. Why don't we talk about, what led us to Beta Quest? Obviously, a convention you were a part of, and, discussing just a little bit of your work, what you got going on, and, why we're spotlighting you today. Who is Matthew Elkins?
Well, it's really interesting. I don't know if I've actually told you guys this or not, but Beta Quest was actually my first convention. So it was my icebreaker. So it was a really cool experience for me because that was my first time getting to go out and meet the fans and actually interact, directly with them rather than just reading comments behind a safe computer screen. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, do they like my work? Google. And then finding out, yes, they did, or no, they didn't. This time I actually had to deal with the person being like, hey, Matt, you were amazing. Or even, I won't lie, there might've been a few that were like, you suck. But, yeah, no, that Beta Quest was my first experience at a convention, and I got to do it with my best friend, who's Drew Breedlove, who plays Bachita in Blue Lock. So he was one that told me about Beta Quest, and they brought me on, and I've been booking conventions like crazy since then, but it'll always have a special place in my heart because that was my number one, my first baby. So
Yeah, Beta Quest is so cool. I mean, we're in this space now where anime is so mainstream and so accepted, and to have something like that, shout out to Kira Simon, right? We have to shout Kira out for putting together that's the second year, Eric, that we've gotten to do Beta Quest, and they're just so generous. All they ask us to do is partner with them and do a little giveaway, and then they let us do some free promotion, which is just awesome. So shout out to Kira and the whole Beta Quest team at Camden Middle School, because Eric, I can't wait to see how that particular small convention continues to grow over time.
Yeah, and they grew a lot since the first year too. I was talking to her about it, and she was like, "Yeah, we had I think she said they had 3 guests the first year and 1 vendor or something like that, and this year they had a whole lot more." So
yeah, it was outside last year, so that was
and it was inside in the gymnasium, but it wasn't too hot, which I was surprised about. I was expecting to be like,
I was a little worried about that. I was a little concerned it was gonna be a little warm and smell like a middle school gym. That was the big concern.
There was not an aroma of feet, which was nice.
Yeah, they did great. So we can't wait to go back there again. And again, like we said, shout out to Kira and the Beta Quest team. So Matt, again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to make sure all of your social media links and projects are in the show notes. Make sure to follow him on Instagram at Matthew Elkins _6 and on Twitter at Matthew Elkins _. But Matt, let's go ahead and get into these the main topics here. Eric, we already discussed that. We just tragically lost that audio that we had with you at Beta Quest. All we have now is a video from far away where it's just like, hey guys, this is Phil, and it's just you and me having this
How's it
silent
going
conversation.
over there?
Exactly. And you discussed with us your very unique origin story that you had, and we'd just love for you to share that with your audience, or with our audience here today. You know, kind of what your upstart was, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a short version and there's a long version. If I were to give you the short version and you said, hey, Matt, how did you get involved in anime? I want to be a voice actor. How'd you get your start? I'd say, I ride horses. And I'd leave it at that.
Very out of context clip there.
It's like, oh, okay.
As do most voice actors start their journey with
Yes, get in the saddle. When you fall off the horse, you get back on. But the longer version is that I grew up in a very athletic family. I was playing college baseball, and when I was in high school, I did do some broadcast journalism classes, but it was very much for my free time. My focus was on sports. So in college, I was playing college baseball, and it was the first time in my life, when you go to college and you have all that freedom and you choose what you're going to do. And so I chose to get my degree in theater, and I was doing everything I loved. I was acting in classical theater, and I was playing baseball. And then, after I stretched, 4 years into 6.5, I walked across the stage with my diploma, and I was like, I've done it. College degree, baby. Bachelor's degree right here. And I looked out at the audience and out at the crowd and thought to myself, I got my degree, and I finished up my baseball career. What in the F do I do now? What do I do with a theater degree? And I thought to myself, it's no big deal. Major League Baseball call. It'll be okay. And I was living on my mom's couch, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for the draft. My older brother had been drafted by the Rangers, so I was like, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And it never happened. So I'm living on my mom's couch, depressed as all get out, because nothing panned out the way it was supposed to. Because, we're all going to be pro athletes. And it didn't pan out the way I was hoping for, and I got very depressed and fell into a depression. After a few months of just living on my mom's couch, eating Cheerios, drinking milk, gaining excessive amounts of weight, my mom was like, she came home one day and was like, hey, sweetie, I had a long day at work, and I was driving home and I saw a Medieval Times advertisement. And I was like, oh, the place knights doing sword fighting. And she's like, yeah, you're athletic and you like acting. You should apply. They're hiring. And I was like, not now, Mom. I'm depressed. And she said, no, sweetie, you don't understand. You're living on my couch. You should apply. And I was like, light bulb. I understand what you're sending, the message you're sending me now. So I went and put in an application, and I got hired. And I've been horseback jousting, sword fighting, clashing and bashing shields for about 5.5 years now. I've taken my hits, I've bled for the company, literally. But after a while, I noticed I had a real knack for stunt work. So I started doing, stunts for TV and film. And I was doing equestrian stunt work on this show called Washington's Armor, where I met a fellow actor, and we became really good friends. Because I don't know if you guys have ever done any kind of film work or TV or film work, but there's a lot of hurry up and wait. So you get in your little costume and you wait a long time, steal a bunch of craft services, and then that you do your thing and then you're done, right? So me and Justin became very good friends. And one night Justin was like, hey, you wanna go out? We'll have like a double date. I'll bring my wife. You can bring a friend of yours or whatnot. I brought a really good friend of mine, Monet Lerner. One of my best friends in the whole world. She's awesome. If you haven't checked out her work, you should. It's really good. And so we went out, and I was talking to Justin, and I met his wife. His wife's name is Jade Saxon. And I was explaining to her my journey, what I do, cutting up, making jokes, being myself. I like to make myself the butt of a lot of jokes, and just having a good time. And then she was like, oh, so you're an actor? And I was like, yeah, I do a lot of acting. And she said, well, I'm actually a director. And I was like, a director for what? And she was like, I'm a director at Crunchyroll. And I looked at her like, is that a sushi place? Like, what is this? And she's like, no, Matt, this is anime. It's actually quite a big deal. And, like I said, I grew up in a very country family. We didn't watch no anime. And she was like, why don't you audition for this part? I really think you'd be perfect for. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to say no. And so I auditioned for the role and I got it. So that's where my journey started. I'll always have a special place in my heart for Jade because she took a risk on me because I was a nobody at that time. I didn't have any anime credits under my belt. I'd been acting for several years, TV, film, but I'd never done any voice stuff where it was purely relying on my voice, on the character I could create with my sound box, and she took a risk on me, and my career ever since then has taken off. I've worked on so many amazing shows that I love, like Trigun Stampede, My Hero Academia, Blue Lock, and not every role is a lead or a main role. Sometimes you're just the guy that comes out and says the monsters are coming, and you die. But it's still an incredible experience that I adore doing, and it's all thanks to Jade. And I really feel like if I have to thank anybody, it's Monet Lerner, Jade Saxon, Drew Breedlove. Those are my top three that I'll always say, I bow to you. My allegiance is to you because you guys, I owe you everything. So that's how I got into it, was horses.
To come back around to the horses. I owe it all to that horse. It's crazy because like Eric, the more and more we do this and the more voice actors that we interact with, how unique everybody's story is. I also want to say, just as, as a 4'8" Filipino kid growing up in Michigan, I was like, yeah, NBA is for me. That's what my next step is. It's gonna happen.
As kids, and not even just kids, early 20s, it's always gonna work out. You're bulletproof, baby.
Yeah, playing football at like 5'6", and then for some reason playing defensive lineman is not. Yeah. Not it. That was we all have our sports background.
We're gonna make it, boys. We're gonna make it.
And you know what, guys? Maybe we're gonna get the call tomorrow. Maybe the three of us are going pro tomorrow.
That's right.
I declare for the NBA draft every year. No one ever calls, but I declare.
By golly, you're doing it.
Exactly.
Oh my God. And I know, and Matt, it was pretty cool to kind of hear you as well talk about just some of the parts and like how much you appreciate and you value them. Talking to Drew Breedlove at BetaQuest, he talked about how he's had a lot of bit parts at Funimation, now Crunchyroll, and getting that kind of chance to play Bachira in Blue Lock, which, everybody in the cast is amazing. Bachira holds a special place in my heart. And for you, I wanted to ask, like, what is something that in the voice acting world would kind of surprise our audience? Like, what is something that kind of happens or that maybe we don't know about that's like either interesting or really surprising that we would hear?
Well, okay, so there are many things. Some I should not talk about. No, but really, there's a lot of things that are really surprising, and I think one of the number one things that surprised me was let's see. I think what I'm going to go with here is probably almost like typecasting, which is not something that I thought of whenever I went into voice work, because in my mind I was like, oh, dude, all you got to do is change your voice, and then you can be anything. And it is true, you can do that. But when you have, and I've never been in the directing seat, so I should probably stop putting my foot in my mouth. But when you have, some of my directing friends have told me, when you have, thousands of submissions just coming in nonstop, and your job is to listen to every single one of them, they've told me you'd be surprised how often you find that certain people fit a certain thing. And what's funny is, like, for me, one thing that cracks me up nonstop, and I'm grateful for this because it's provided me with a lot of work, and we accept who we are or whatnot. But I remember when Jade cast me the first time, I went in and I got in the booth for the first time, and I put on the headphones and I was talking into the mic, And I was like, hey, Jade, I just want you to know this is my first time. I'm really nervous. And she goes, stop. Matt, stop. You don't have to be nervous at all because this character is you. You just have to be yourself. I casted you as this character, as I do all my characters, based on who they are. And I was like, wow, that is awesome. You know, I can't screw this up. And she said, okay, you're playing Satoru. He's a dim-witted pervert. And and I stopped. I was like, huh?
Pardon me?
I was like,
It's a spitting image.
Thank you for thinking of me, I think. But what's funny is you create a reputation for yourself that carries throughout from studio to studio. You know, whether it's studio 1 all the way down to studio, I think it's like 13. When I got cast in Beast Tamer, Sean Gann, he was like, hey, Matt, this is awesome. I know you're not at Medieval Times. You're playing a prince. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, I see some correlation there. And he was like, your name is Edgar. And you're kind of like this womanizer, kind of dumb, a little pervy. And I was like, okay, that's coincidence, right? That's got to be coincidence. And I was like, I just hope my next one's not a perv. I don't want to be known as a perv. And I got cast as Zantetsu. And I went in there, and Jonathan Rigg, amazing director, by the way, great guy. He said, Matt, I cast you as Zantetsu. He's incredibly athletic. Cha-ching, that's a win. You know, and I was like, I see some connection there. You know, I'm a knight at Medieval Times. I'm a pro athlete. Don't get paid like a pro athlete, but I'm a pro athlete. And he was like, yeah, so just, you know, really embody that power. Oh yeah, by the way, he's kind of dim-witted. What is happening here?
Trifecta, yeah.
What I've come to realize is like it's not that I'm a dimwit. It's that they understand that like, oh, that's a character Matt can really embody and play, right? I can play this guy who's the butt of the joke. I can play this guy who, when we're making fun of somebody, it's going to be this character. You know what I mean? And so what I'm getting at is there's a lot more typecasting going on in the voiceover world than I realized, because I just assumed you go in there and you can't see me. I'll be whoever I want. Well, you still have that relationship that you've built with the director, and they know what kind of humor will be read on screen coming out of your mouth whenever they match it to the flaps. And so that's something that was really interesting for me to see, because I was like, oh, wow, okay. And the other thing, one more thing I will say that's surprising is how real you have to be with some of these shows. Because I play a character in One Piece called Poker, where I'm just all over the top, right? He's like this half snake man, and I mean, everything I do is just extreme, right? But when I was doing my first show with Jade, I was playing Satoru, and she was like, you got to tone it back, man. You got to take it way back, just like you're having a regular conversation. And I was like, oh, but isn't this a cartoon? But they still want it grounded in that reality based on the show. And what's funny, though, is then when I transitioned over to One Piece, I was like, I'm going to follow Jade's advice. I kept it very grounded in there. And they were like, hey, this is One Piece. You got to crank that up a little bit. And I was like, oh, damn it. And then I thought to myself, maybe I am that dimwit.
Well, you know what? I mean, that is amazing. And it's kind of funny that you said that, because like I've recently been paying attention to a lot of voice actors, because I notice, and I always wondered, like, is that something that they think of or the studio thinks of when they're selecting somebody? Like, I'll give you a good example. Clifford Chaplin plays Bakugo. Very, very notable voice. And every time he voice acts, like, I hear it. Like, it's hard not to hear, like, such an iconic character. Yeah. That's his biggest role. But what I've noticed, and I really didn't think about this until you said it the way you said it, the characters he play all have like similar traits. Uh-huh. So he doesn't really need to do a pretend voice. He's kind of bringing that out of him, and it embodies the character. And what I've noticed with him specifically as a voice actor, you know, as an example, I've noticed that I kind of ignore the voice after a little bit. Like at first it's a little bit of a shock, because you're like, I know that voice, I know that character. That's what's in my mind. And then maybe a little bit later, 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, you almost get lost into it because you're more focused on the character work. So I thought that was a fantastic answer. I never really thought of it that way.
Well, and you see it all the time in live action work, you know, like a a great example is Matthew McConaughey almost ruined his whole acting career because at one point he decided, I don't want to play the romantic comedy lead anymore. I want to, do like serious genres. And people, even though he's this like, he was raking in millions of dollars, people were just like, oh, that's not your character. You don't play those roles. And he was turning down movie after movie, and people were just like, you don't play the serious lead. You play the romantic comedy. Come on, Matt, get with it, And so I do believe you can reinvent yourself. It does happen. I'm just saying, I thought, oh, you just got to go in and do whatever. But the director has carefully selected you, and they know what they want. So if you think you just go in there and you got to be like, blah, blah, and do whatever. No, the director knows what they want. Like Jade is a great example. She has it like down to a T. She knows what she's looking for. And I've worked with her for 3 seasons now. We just wrapped up a 3rd season on the show Natsume's Book of Friends. To now I can go in there with her in a, they might book me for 30 minutes. We'll get it done in 5 because I know what she wants now. But when I started out, I was going to make the character how I thought it was supposed to sound and do and be. And Jade was just like, nope. Because like she knew what it was supposed to be, and she knew what I was capable of too, because she's really intelligent, really talented director. The only thing she's probably better at than directing is probably acting. She's also an incredible voice actor. But yeah, you can get typecast, and so you kind of got to be careful with the reputation you set out there and make sure that you always bring your A game no matter what you're doing, because those directors are very talented individuals and they've been selected for a reason. They take note of how you sound, how you act, what character sounds believable, what doesn't. It's a big job, and it takes a very unique individual to be able to do it.
That's such a crazy example too, and such a good example with Matthew McConaughey, because then he went on to have like the best 2014 of any entertainer ever. He just put out like a little movie called Interstellar and Dallas Buyers Club, and like, he had like a crazy year. So that's a really good example. Yeah, and that's something that's come up before, as well as just working really always making sure you're putting out your best work. I got to interview, she's been on the show, Adasa, who was in Encanto. She was one of the characters of Encanto, and she was found off of a YouTube video that she had uploaded like 5 years ago. Someone came across that was casting for Encanto, came across her video and reached out to her. And so you just like really never know who's paying attention and who is monitoring your work and just looking for people to fill those roles like you're talking about.
And what's funny is you kind of, and for me, I almost have to like put it in the back of my mind, like in my subconscious, because if I think about it too much, the next thing I know, I'm like, everything I do matters. Everything I say is affecting my career.
Right.
So, acting, one of the really fun things about acting in general, not just voice acting, is almost being willing to be honest, which is something that an acting teacher of mine, Glenn Morshower, talked about. I think it was Glenn. I've had a lot of different acting teachers through the years, but he said it's so important to be honest, and it's also really hard because you'd be surprised, in my opinion, that the majority of the world is acting for 8 hours a day, and you're only being yourself when you go home. But when you get in the booth, they want you to be yourself, or at least who they think you are, and to be yourself, because the casting department, the casting director, has already picked you for what they want. Now, sometimes you got to have some creative control, but they already know what they want. They didn't bring you in there because they don't know what you can do. They brought you in there because they said, oh, Matt fits this. Matt can do this, So,
Yeah, I love that. And that's something like totally separate from the work you do, but like in my professional life, that's something I've had to figure out like now 30 years in of my life. Like I am who I am. Like I can make some adjustments in the moments that they're needed, but like I gotta embrace the thing that makes me, right? Yeah. So that I absolutely love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Or at least that's for me now. Maybe in 10 years, I'll be like, I'm a hotshot baby. I do what I want. But right now.
That's right. Matt will not be returning our calls. So
unfollows us. What the hell happened?
He's gonna be like, you remember that one night? I'm not sorry. It's just 10 years back date.
Yeah, well, like Eric said, great answer, and again, just kind of finding, as kind of cliche as we're talking to you, a voice actor, finding that voice, no matter what it is, what that profession is, whatever that passion is super important. You kind of addressed this already, so I kind of want to change the question up a little bit. You said, growing up, you didn't really watch a whole lot of anime. It was kind of the same with me. It was like the mainstream. Like I would watch Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, things of that nature. Eric was more of a Dragon Ball Z fan. If you ever listened to any of those intro to anime episodes, for you, even though you didn't watch it growing up, do you find yourself catching up on or watching anything now just to kind of get yourself into what is this world that I've now been thrust into? Are you finding anything else or finding anything that you're like, damn, this is pretty good?
Dude, you would not believe the 180 turnaround that my life has become since I started working in anime, because now I'm obsessed with it. I mean, like, let me put it this way. My mom and dad love me. They adore me. I'm a very spoiled little silver spoon kid. My parents adore me. They have not watched a single anime episode that I've been in. And the reason is because that was not my family. I did attend school in Fort Worth, but as soon as school was let out in the summer, I was thrown back my granddad's station wagon. Sometimes it was the bed of the truck, and we'd drive 4 hours west. And I would spend the whole summer at the ranch. My mom grew up castrating cows and, riding horseback. I repaired a lot of fence. It was very country. My family's very country. And we only went to the movies on a birthday. I remember the first time we went to the movies when it wasn't someone's birthday was when Harry Potter came out. The very first Harry Potter came out. And I spent half the time trying to figure out whose birthday it was, because I was like, what's going on here? We don't go to the movies unless it's somebody's birthday. And we didn't watch cartoons very much. I remember crying once when I was very, very young because I wanted to stay and watch Pokemon. And my dad was like, you're on a baseball practice. That's what you do for fun, is you play sports. And, I think maybe the only anime I had ever seen prior to being a 30-year-old man who started in anime was maybe half a season of Yu-Gi-Oh! And half a season of Pokemon. And that was it. Now, I can't get enough of it. I just like, my brother will be calling me. He'll be like, hey, you want to come out and help me work the cows? Hey, you should come out. We got to, fix up the hunting lease. We got some hunters coming out. And I'll just be like, I'm kind of busy. And I'm over here watching, Hell's Paradise, Chainsaw Man, My Hero Academia, you name it. Natsume's Book of Friends. I like to listen to myself, kind of conceited. But Blue Lock, I can't get enough of it. I'm just glued to the screen. And I suddenly totally understand what this passion is, because there's a passion when it comes to anime. People aren't just fans; they're obsessed. We have the head horse trainer up at Medieval Times. He likes to joke around and tell me that I'm a faker. He's always like, I'm gonna expose you, Elkins. I'm gonna expose you. He told me that today at practice. He's like, I'm gonna expose you because you're not it's called like a weeb or something like that. Whenever you're like obsessed with anime, he's like, you're not one of us. You never liked anime. And I'm always like, they'll never know, ha ha ha. And he's always like, I'll expose you. I think now I'll give people a run for their money. But for like shows that are coming out now, but if you were to bring up shows that were made before I started working in it, I wouldn't know anything, because I was a cowboy, baby. We was out working fence, catching cows. When we weren't doing that, we were playing baseball, because that was life. And I still I'll never trade my childhood for anything, but I'm just saying I was very much outdoorsy, athlete. I was an athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's kind of interesting too, because like, I think all of us, Phil as well, can kind of relate to that. Like the Narutos of the world. Like if you didn't watch that, I'm trying to get into One Piece. Personally, I've tried doing the anime route. Now I'm going the manga route because I know how much it is, and it can be daunting to like have to go back and watch it. So like it definitely is difficult. And some of those older animes are a little bit tougher to watch than, like you just mentioned, Hell's Paradise, that like gripped me from the first episode, Chainsaw Man, which I love, right? It's so hard to kind of go back. Is there anything, Matt, that you're watching like either now or within the last couple of years that like got you into the obsession? Like obviously you're in the field, you're in anime, but like is there anything you watch that you're like, wow, like this is definitely the type of media I need to continue to consume? Because for me, you know, the easy one was My Hero. Attack on Titan is very close. It started me, but My Hero is what led me into the obsession route. Do you have a pinpoint anime that led you into the obsession path?
It's gonna sound like a plug, but Blue Lock.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, here's my reason for it. Okay, so Blue Lock has something for everybody, right? I remember. Keep in mind, I just told you, my family is like my mom, dad have like watched none of my stuff, and usually my mom's the type of parent that's like, you did an interview, and she's sitting at the computer like watching it 100 times in a row until my sister's like, Mom, stop. But like I remember I was out at the ranch because I was helping my brother work on the deer lease, and I got the email, which was really surprising because service is terrible out there. Because if you go out to Rotan, there's a Dairy Queen and one stoplight, and those are the sites. Well, there's a grocery store that closes at 5 p.m. So I hope you can get there before 5 p.m. And they also butcher their own meat at the grocery store, which is.
But also, it's like Texas law to have a Dairy Queen. So
oh yeah, you have to. You can only consider yourself an official like established town if there's a Dairy Queen.
All right, stop signs, stop lights. Where's the Dairy Queen gonna go?
But like I remember when I got the email and I told my brother, I was like, hey dude, I think we're gonna have to go in early. I've got to watch this show because I just got cast. And he's extremely supportive. My brother's named Matthew Elkins. He's my older brother by 2 years, drafted by the Texas Rangers. Like he's my hero. You know what I mean? Like I aspire to be him someday. That's my idol, right? And of course, the sweetheart that he is, he was like, yeah, I'm so excited for you. What's the show? And I was like, oh, it's an anime. And he was like, cool, yeah, that's gonna be great. And I was like, you want to watch the first episode in the J, in Japanese with me? And he's like, yeah, I guess we could do that. And so we sit down and we watch the episode, and of course I'm nerding out on it because I'm so pumped. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I look at my brother and he's like, well, do you want to watch episode 2? And I was like, yeah. So we watch episode 2, and then we watch episode 3. And I'm like, okay, my brother's probably tired of this. He's done with this. And I look at him and I'm like, hey man, thanks. That's all the episodes. I appreciate you supporting me and watching that with me. And he's like, you mean there's no more? There's no more? And I'm just like, he's hooked. You know what I mean? And that's the thing about Blue Lock is there's something in it for everybody. If you're into sports, it's got the sports aspect. If you're into more of like the drama and the gripping, kind of like, because I always say it's soccer meets Squid Games. You know what I mean? And it really has something for everybody. Whether you're the theater nerd, me, or whether you're the jock, my older brother, it's there. You're gonna find a hook in there for you, and it's gonna get you, and you're gonna be stuck watching it.
I think it's immediately just like obsessive. Like that first episode, the way it plays out, and I love that you said Squid Game with soccer. Obviously, like that is what it is, and that's what I told Phil. And then literally leading up to Beta Quest, Phil, you ended up binging in
watched all 24 episodes in like 2 days.
And it was crazy.
I'm super pumped because did you hear they got a Nagi movie coming out? A movie that revolves around Nagi, and then season 2. So I'm just like, oh, I hope we get a dub of that. Please bring me back for this. It's so the only thing more fun than watching that show is working on it, because Jonathan Rigg, he is the director, and man, is he a blessing to work with. That guy is, he used to work for Nintendo. He's got all kinds of credits under his belt, and at the same time, he will give you some creative leeway. He'll let you really kind of explore the character, and he's just so fun to work with. He's such a nice guy, and he's really, really talented at what he does.
And I think it shows in the work, right? Like it shows in your guys' work, the direction, the voice acting, the animators that work on the show. Like, Matt, are you surprised at all of the just immense popularity of the show? Because I mean, this is one of the biggest sports anime I would say that's come out since maybe like Haikyuu, and I'm not like really into sports anime like that, so it's making that statement might be wrong. But if from my point of view, it's like I never heard of a sports anime like taking over the community the way Blue Lock has. Has that been surprising?
It's funny you say that about, oh, I'm not really into sports anime, because I hear that a lot, because it's kind of a genre for a certain type of person enjoys it. But that's what's special about Blue Lock is, like, trust me, you don't have to be a sports anime guy to watch it and be like, yeah, I'm gonna binge watch all 24 episodes. I was surprised at how good it was, from what I was told. Whenever I read kind of some synopsis online and stuff, kind of prepping to play the character. It's like it's a soccer anime, and then watching it, I knew it was going to be huge just because I was glued, because I'm watching it like this, like just glued to it. And I'm dyslexic, so like I have a hard time reading, and I'm still just glued. Like if I, watching it in the J, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to replay it and watch it again. I could watch this 100 times. The soundtrack alone, I adore. The animation. It's not just the characters; it's the animation and the soundtrack. I mean, sometimes when I go work out, when I'm pumping iron, I'm throwing on the squat belt and I'm pumping out the iron, working on the glutes. I've got the Blue Lock soundtrack playing because it gets me pumped, man. When Chiggity's running to make his whenever he finally embraces that he's not scared to run on his leg anymore. I mean, I get goosebumps, and I've seen it 4 times, and I still get the hair standing up in my arms, and I'm like, oh yeah, Dad likes that. That's cool. Like that's awesome. It's just all the pieces, all the puzzle pieces fit together with that show. It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's really just a testament. It's a testament to like what you're talking about when, because I have to credit Eric for my anime fandom now, because he had started to dive into, the My Heroes and the Attack on Titans. And now I feel like I am starting to find, what my anime voice is, as I've figured out what I like and what I don't like. And Eric has kind of gotten to a point of frustration where he will now only really recommend stuff that he knows that I will sit down and watch, because and again, like you said, something with Blue Lock is just so special. And we talked about some older anime like Yu-Gi-Oh, where there are, and Pokemon specifically, they both did this, where it took 15 episodes for Ash to get through the woods, and I'm like, can we do something?
Can we get a move on here?
Something happen. and Blue Lock does this thing, where it slows down and it explains what the characters are thinking, what they're seeing, how they're feeling, and I'm like hooked. I'm like, God, this is so good. And I never feel like there's any moment wasted, even in the downtime with the characters. Just like they're always thinking about what's next. They're thinking about how they're going to focus on whatever the next challenge is going to be, how they're going to adapt to new teammates, how they're going to adapt to new challenges. And that's why I think it has transcended just being a sports anime and just being a really, really great anime. And that I think sometimes can be difficult when people see what a show is about, whether it's anime or not, and then you figure out, okay, it's more than that. It's really strange that like Eric had found Blue Lock and has developed this incredible fandom when it comes to soccer, and then for me it was Ted Lasso. So him and I, who have never played soccer in our life, well, I played when I was like a kid. Eric, you probably did too.
Or really watched it. Like we do watch it, but not like for real.
Don't really enjoy watching live action soccer, to be honest with you. But I became obsessed with Ted Lasso.
The monologuing mid run that gets.
If we can get Jason Sudeikis in Blue Lock, man, it will be like. Or you and Ted Lasso, whatever comes first.
I want to be in Ted Lasso. I vote for that one.
Yeah. It's crazy, Eric, that we both found these fandoms that are soccer related, and then we had this mutual friend of ours for years trying to get us to watch actual soccer, and we were like, no, I don't want any part of that.
No. And again, I mean, you said it, man. Like you really don't have to enjoy sports, to watch it, and I think that's what so many people forget about. But when I watched it, like when I was done, I felt so silly. Like I do like sports just in general. I love the tenacity of it, the uncertainty of it, and just mesh that with anime and the inner monologues and the eyes to let you know that someone's going to the next level. Like, it was just such a perfect pairing. And, you know, the game of soccer really translated well for that story that they were wanting to tell. I love the whole just concept of Blue Lock in general. So like every little corner it kept taking, it was just working.
Well, you know, one thing I think Blue Lock does so well is, and you know who's actually, I credit Jonathan Rigg for a lot of this because he's really good at this too. And so when you combine the fact that the right director with the right creator of the show and writer or whatnot, they're both on a similar mind link. What I think they both do so well is the reason Blue Lock has something for everyone is because it incorporates a lot of what I would consider classic anime, which is this out of normal reality type of thing, like the monster inside of Bachata, or, you know, the monologuing while you're running and the eyes lighting up, or the, you know, the puzzle pieces fitting. But then it grounds it in a sense of reality where it could all just be going on in their heads. You know what I mean? Or maybe it just represents something. So whether you're more interested in, you know, realism, or whether you're more interested in that fantasy world, you can kind of just like a buffet pick and choose how you want to view it, you know? And so it can reach a very wide audience there, because you don't have to say, no one's gonna be like, well, that's unrealistic, because, well, it's not necessarily unrealistic. You know, there's all kinds of stuff going on. You know, maybe, you know, the smoke coming out of the eyes, that doesn't mean necessarily there's actually smoke coming out of his eyes. It could just represent, you know, the intensity of the scene. Or if you're into that kind of thing, then it's like, oh, he's got smoke coming out of his eyes, you know, or you feel what I'm saying? Like, there's something for you to grab hold on no matter how you view media, because people view media for several things. You know, a lot of times it's they want to learn a lesson or they want to escape reality. And you can kind of snatch on to both of those with Blue Lock, whether you want to learn about camaraderie, teamwork, or whether you just want to escape reality for a while and, you know, get lost in the drama that is Blue Lock.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of selfishness too, in addition to the teamwork, like, and that egoist in all of us. Like, again, it really just pulls at the heartstrings as far as being like, wow, this is really, really dope. And I mean, you mentioned like with the eyes and stuff, like the thing I like the most about Blue Lock is when they turn it on and the eyes kind of spiral, it just lets you know, it just lets you know something's going on there.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just something
It's
about
like,
eyes in anime.
Buckle your
too,
seatbelt. We're taking off, folks. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, but also, again, we see it as all three of us as sports fans. You can see that in the best athletes in the world. Well, they get that look on that. Kobe had that. You know, LeBron has that to an extent. We see that. We could see that in Tom Brady. You know, and those mega athletes. You see that even though it's not a physical spiraling of the eyes. You're like, oh God, that guy's locked in.
And he's about to wreck some shop here.
Right. It's not going to be good. So yeah, you know, you talked about a little bit about Zentetsu earlier, who I gotta say, Matt, like your delivery of that character is so good. It made me, you know, some of those small moments there that just make me laugh out loud. I was like, God, this is a great character. And when I heard you're going to be a beta quest, I was very excited to speak with you about it. You know, you touched on Zentetsu a little bit earlier. You know, what are some things you do love about that character, and also some of the characteristics you feel you may share with him?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that, because I'm going to relate to him in a lot of ways. Like, I really, really connect with this character. And what I'm going to go for here, I feel like I'm just over here beating myself down, but almost, I've always made it through life, if you will, a lot of times on my physical ability, right? I'm not always the sharpest chisel in the shed, and I'm okay with that. But I make it through life because things just come at me and they hit me. Oh, I get knocked down, I get up and I keep going, right? So when I started at Medieval Times, there was this particular horse that was a little bit difficult to work with. And my boss was like, hey, we need somebody who will just, drop his manhood on the table and jump off that horse, and I did it. I would just jump off and bounce around like I was made of rubber. And my boss was like, pardon my French, but my boss was like, oh, Matt, you've got that fuck it gene in your body where, you just say, screw it, I'm going to do it. And there's a moment in Blue Lock where I believe it's Chigity tells Zantetsu that it's dumb. And Zantetsu's really offended by that because he knows how athletic he is, but this character actually wants to hide that he's dumb, but his friends call him stupid all the time. And that's okay because they're his friends, and I relate to that because my best friends in the world would be like, oh God, Matt, what did you just say? Oh, you idiot. Ha 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 ha. And it's always fun because I know it comes from a place of love. And we're all, we all have flaws as humans. One thing I love more than anything is comedy. And comedy is just about, in my opinion, being honest and putting your flaws out there, whether it's to relate or whether it's because you break up the pattern, accepting that you have them. But the one thing that really hurts my feelings and drives me wild is when somebody I don't know or I don't respect tells me I'm an idiot. And you see this character who's kind of the comedic relief it's a joke in the show, but you almost see this real snippet of humanity in there that I really connected to, where he's sitting in the locker room and there's Team V's losing to Team Z, and he's just like, he pushes up his glasses and he's just like, ugh, that redhead, he called me stupid and he doesn't even know me. And it's like, I connect to that because it's like, oh, he's not even upset that he was called stupid. He's just upset that somebody he doesn't know him called him stupid. And I'm telling you, it's because that character knows that his friends love him. It's that he knows that he has some redeeming qualities with his friends, whereas he felt completely disrespected in the other. Because that happens to me all the time at medieval times. Maybe I'm not the best knight, or maybe I'm not the most athletic, but if I take a sword to the face, oh, no big deal. Take a axe to the stomach, oh, no big deal. I'm just gonna keep going, and it's like I'm made of I'm made of iron, and nothing hurts me, and I just keep going. And that's kind of how I see Zantetsu. It's like he might say something dumb, but he's just gonna keep going. That's okay. He's just gonna play it off. And I do that all the time in conversation. I'll say something and then I'll realize, that didn't make any sense. I'm just gonna change the subject now. You know what I mean? So I relate to that. And I think really that's a character that everybody can relate to, because Zantetsu has a really large following, especially for a character who, I think it's so far, he's in like 7 or 9 episodes out of the 24, which actually is not that high of a ratio, but he has such a large following. And I think it's because people can relate to that. Nobody's a genius. A quote that you've always heard is there's always a bigger fish. So it doesn't matter how many books you've read, what you've studied, somebody out there knows a lot more than you in something. And it's like, we can relate to that character. And I think everybody connects to that. And I know I certainly do.
Yeah, it's kind of like this example that I think of, and Eric, you'll be very familiar with this. We are Jacksonville Jaguar fans and season ticket holders, and they have sucked for most of their existence. And we can say that they're terrible. Yeah. And if you say that they're bad, and that the team is an embarrassment, you better not talk about our team on Twitter, and they will eviscerate you. Jaguar Twitter will destroy you, no matter who you are. It is that's what that is. Like, you can't talk about, like, you can, like, and Eric, I know you relate to this too. Like, you can say that you don't like our content, you don't like our takes or anything like that. What you're not going to say is that we don't work our asses off. You don't know that we, or that someone can do this better than we do it. That's one thing. That's another thing. You can insult our takes and our opinions and stuff like that all the time, but, like, don't tell us that we don't work hard. Yeah,
like, absolutely. You have to be at a certain level and be in the group in order to criticize. Otherwise,
right?
Your mouth shut.
Yeah. Right.
But imagine, Phil, the stuff that we say to each other, like, we're so mean to each other all the time, like every day. But if somebody did that to us, that I didn't know, we'd be like, hey.
Especially, like, if somebody were to say something to Phil, I know you'd be like, excuse me, that's my best friend. You better shut your mouth.
And nobody talks to him like that except to me.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Right there. It's like, nobody talks about him that way. Well, except for me, but nobody else. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, like it is a very, and each character is so layered in Blue Lock. You know, you can really break down each and every, and again, that is the mark of a good, not just anime, but just good show in general. You know, when you have side characters that you give a damn about, that is when you know you're like, oh man, they have tapped into something really, really special here.
And that's what I love about him is like, you know, you go and check out the comments. People are like, I want more of him. We want to see more. We want to see more. And I'm like, that's a credit to the writers of the show. That's a credit to Jonathan, because he really put a lot of thought into this character. I know we tried out several different voices, several different styles, and he had it in his head. Jonathan knew how he wanted it. And I mean, we did it one way. I mean, I remember the first session we went in and we did it one way, and he was like, awesome, I think we got it. And I was like, okay, cool. And he was like, let's just try it this other way real quick. And we redid it all. You know, we did it all over again. And I was like, okay, we got it. And then he was like, okay. And then he called me back the next day and we did it again. And the point is that, like, this character is presented in a way that was really, really well thought out. Even though he is, in my opinion, a comedic relief, you know, which I think is so important in shows and in life in general. Comedy's the spice of life. It's what keeps us going, because otherwise it's just one big depressing pit. But Jonathan really knew what he wanted. And, you know, him and Jordan Dash Cruz hashed it out for a long time about how they wanted me to portray this character. And we really got something special, I think. And I can't wait for y'all to see more.
Yeah, super exciting. I mean, again, between the movie, everything else in Blue Lock, and then all the other future opportunities that I know are definitely on the way. You know, Matt, as we're kind of wrapping up this spotlight, you know, talk to us a little bit about, you know, what's next for you. Are there any projects you can tell us that you're currently working on, or anything at all? Like, again, if someone's following you after this episode from our audience, you know, what can they expect from you in the future?
Well, one thing I will say, I have been blessed to work on a lot of anime. You know, keep in mind, not every character is, like we talked about before, the lead character. And, you know, sometimes they're not even named characters. But I am really excited to continue on this anime journey. Crunchyroll's pretty big about not, you know, telling what you do until it comes out. So I'll keep my mouth hush on that a little bit. But I will say that there are some projects in the tube right now that I'm really pumped to be working on, as well as I'm also hoping to keep my live action career going. You know, I still perform, you know, 5 days a week at medieval times. So if anybody wants to come check me out there, hit me up on Instagram. Let me know you're coming. But also, I just booked I can't name the movie, but I just booked a Western. It's a live action Western that I'll be shooting later this month that I'm really excited about. But yeah, I know that my character in One Piece is still going. His name's Poker. He's part of the Beast Pirate arc. So I'm excited to play that character because I really got to get creative with that. The director, Anthony, really kind of let me explore some different stuff in that one. So yeah, definitely One Piece. And then, of course, this Western that I have coming out. So I'm pretty excited for the public to see that.
Yeah, Eric, you can see that One Piece character in 2030 when you get caught up.
I'm going to get caught up. Stop.
If you ever get caught up. Although I will say that about...
I'll be like, hey, I see your character.
And then he's going to be like, stop messaging me. Do you know who I am? I'm Matt Elkins. Oh, yeah, that'll be 10 years from now. Yeah, well, Matt, we're so excited to see what is next for you. You know, we have been, again, we are approaching, Eric, what will be our third Bold Matsuri in June, our third Bold Matsuri anime convention here in Jacksonville, Florida. And one of the first people we ever got to work with was Elizabeth Maxwell. She's in a bunch of stuff. You guys probably know her as Midnight in My Hero Academia. And I remember one thing she said in one of the very first panels we ever did is one of the most important things when it comes to voice acting is building relationships, and also don't be a dick. And just be nice, and just be nice to people. And Matt, I can just say you're one of the nicest people we have ever come across doing this. And we know there are so many big things for you in the future. We can't wait to to follow what's next and hear about whatever these secret projects are. We know that we also know, with the voice actors we work with, like Crunchyroll, they will find us if we mention what's coming down the pipeline. So we totally understand there. So yeah, we are just so excited to see what's next for you. And we thank you so much for your time here this evening.
Yeah, I know we're wrapping up, but I will say that's one thing I would I want to touch on just briefly, which is because I get a lot of people asking me like, how do I get into voice acting? And the number one thing I'll tell them is everybody gets their foot in the door a different way.
Like horses.
Yeah, like horses. But if you want to keep your foot in the door, don't be a dick. Because you could be as talented as you could possibly be, but if nobody wants to work with you because it is a miserable process, you're not coming back. You know what I mean? It's like, let's make sure you're, kind of cliche, but be a good person and you'll always be employed.
Yeah, like we can't send out a media kit to guests that we want to come on and, they're all bad experiences. Like we're not that wouldn't work out for us. We wouldn't get to do awesome series like this. But once again, make sure you check out the show notes for all of Matt's social media links. And, that's where you can keep up with whatever is next for him. Eric, is there anything else you want to ask our guest here this evening before we wrap up?
No, honestly, Matt, again, this was such a pleasure to be able to do. And, you're talking about typecasting and how that kind of leads to some opportunities. I have no doubts. You're going to get typecast right where you need to be. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. We are huge fans. So we're going to be annoyingly liking your posts and commenting and being like, hey, don't forget about us.
I hope y'all won't forget about me. I hope you won't forget about me because I love getting to do this interview. It was an absolute blast. And I hope that, you'll find a reason to bring me back.
Yep. No, this episode will never release. So this is we're gonna.
That's right. We lost the audio.
See you next month.
Yeah, and then like I said, we were chopping it up beforehand. I am hoping to get out to the DFW area again and hopefully go back to my Hyenas roots and do some stand-up. So I'll be in contact with you and let you know if that happens. So, and I'll drag Eric along with me because we're always just traveling all over looking for new spots to hang out at. So we'll make that happen.
If you guys are ever, around the area and you're doing a stand-up or something, let me know because I'd love to come out. I'll even put pants on because,
Awesome.
I
won't.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm not wearing pants right now. I'm pulling.
I don't think any of us are. No.
We're pulling Ron Burgundy's. Have you seen Anchorman where he's waist down and not wearing pants?
No, absolutely not.
I think I know why you get typecasted in some of these roles now.
Oh man, well again, Matt, thank you so much for joining us, and for those of you that are still here, thank you guys so much for checking out this episode of the podcast. Like we said in the beginning, we hope to bring this to you guys monthly as we just spotlight some of the great people we get to meet doing what we do with these conventions. And for all of you brand new listeners, make sure to check out the Linktree link in the show notes. If you are here listening to this episode on what I assume is Wednesday, make sure you go back Monday for my unapologetic plug for the full season 3 review of Ted Lasso with our friend Jay from Super Bracket Bros, and then all the rest of the content we have planned for the rest of the month in June. And also make sure you check out our TikTok as well, right, Eric? I mean, we have so much content coming out over there, and as far as all the movie reviews that we usually used to do on the podcast, those have now found their way over to TikTok, a different platform. So make sure you check those out, and then Eric, let them know how else they can support the show as well.
Yeah, whether you're supporting us through the Buzzsprout page or directly through Patreon, we definitely appreciate the support to keep the show running. Supporters on Patreon like Briar are helping us out, and we have bonus content. So if you want to see the full video in the unedited version of this episode, you want to get an early release, or you want to get some merch, there are multiple tiers to choose from. Again, your support's very, very much appreciated. With all of that being said, my name is Mr. Eric Almighty. That is my co-host, Phil the Filipino, and our wonderful guest, Matthew Elkins. On the podcast, we release new episodes every Monday and Wednesday, and all you have to do is wait for it.
So, I heard you're looking for a go-to source for entertainment. Wait for it. Gaming. Wait for it. Anime. Plus Ultra! Mr. Eric Almighty and Phil the Filipino? Yeah, they've got you covered. And all you gotta do is wait for it. This is the Wait For It podcast.